Hey guys, welcome to the hacks at the diamond level and for management simulation for frontline managers, new managers, and managers in transition. Remember, this is an internal presentation. It should not be shared to anybody outside Project Starfish. Okay, so first of all, the diamond level is the toughest of all the levels over here. What is needed at this moment of time is first thing, step number one, they need to complete the platinum process to even get to the diamond level. So, long story short, as I said, gold, platinum, and diamond, they are all very connected. If they do not do well in the platinum process, it is high chance if they're not lucky, they won't be able to make it to the outcome of the diamond, which is to close the business and get a written handoff. So let's talk about the second step. Once the customer has agreed, it is very important to draw up a contract with the customer. Why? Because it is needed in the industry. But the biggest thing is people need to be crystal clear. You need to ensure, as a project manager, you need to ensure that if the person in the simulation doesn't do it, you need to get the person on the phone and say, we need to devise the contract with the customer. Can you write this contract? Salespeople need to write contracts like this and indemnify both sides. It is needed in the industry, but it is also very important for us to bring the clarity. So that was step number two. Step number three is to set the correct expectation. Now remember, expectations as a project manager, you have to guide the person going through the simulation saying you need to follow step number three, which is you need to set the correct expectation with the customer, not only through the contract, but verbally. You also need to set the contract with the team, which is going forward, if the customer agrees, uh, this, and this is going to happen. If it doesn't, if the contract is not set between both parties, internally and externally, we're going to have challenges. We'll have clarification issues. So now this was step number three. Step number four is when the customer says, okay, let's go and get this project done. Remember, we gathered all the requirements at the platinum level. Now it is time not only to set the expectations, but now it's planned. Now there is a need to plan, strategize, and execute. There is a reason to get on the phone with the entire team and plan how do we execute it, what kind of timelines, and what are the deliverables. As a project manager running this simulation, you have to be crystal clear about the plan and the strategy and the execution, because if there is no clarity, the team will not be able to execute. If there is no clarification based on strength, like who gets what money, who executes what, and what are their strengths, it is going to be very difficult because there is a lack of clarity. So we are not going to be aligned. Last piece that you have to follow, whatever may it be, there has to be a timeline for execution, which means today, here's the plan. Tomorrow, here's the plan. Day after tomorrow, here's the plan. Let us review the work on this particular day, and then let's get to the next step where we talk to the customer. Which means you have to ensure that that delegation happens with clarity and the person has a delegation and execution plan. Up to this fifth stage, which is delegation of execution, remember, you have to bring clarity at each and every step. You might have to step in sometimes very politely and say, would you mind if I give you a suggestion? This has happened in the past and we have burnt our fingers. I like you very much, so I don't want to create a problem here. What if I tell you what may have worked? I'm not saying you this is going to work here, But if we can follow the process actually works. So you have to step in and ensure this is done. Do not speak too much. It might hit people on their ego because of the reason they might be from corporate. But you need to do the job really well. Why? Because it, it goes into two things. Make the manager successful. Point number two, very, very critical, that you have to ensure that it is done on time. Okay, so we go to the sixth step, which is when supervision happens, do not allow the manager to put every responsibility on the project manager, that is you, who's running the project management cycle. It might happen. Sometimes you may have to do it. But what is more important is that you have to ensure that the person walks the talk. Very important. You have to tell the person that, okay, I like it, I can actually help you, but what if we divide and conquer? You do this, I do this. Push responsibilities towards him or her who's going to be the manager. Okay? Be very careful. Remember, the first priority is great experience. The second piece is getting the whole thing on time. The third piece, as I say, is people skills. Manage people extremely well and their ego. Last piece, if the person does not do, the he or she who is the manager does not get a written handoff saying the project is done well, or the customer does not pay up, it is the fault and problem of the manager. Do not take any blame if you do not have anything to blame yourself for, which is the reason your job is to do the light things, the lighter stuff, and give the major stuff to the person. Sometimes you might have to bend the rules depending upon the conditions, but create a great experience. Okay, so let's review this once again. The first is mandatory completion of the platinum process. The second step is the contractual process, which is negotiating the contracts and developing it on the fly or whatever it is that needs to be done. It needs to remind the person that success is in the contract. This is an art that needs to be learned, which means it should be set up at the customer end and internally in the team, and bring clarity on who does what are the timelines, what are the responsibilities, how do they communicate. Everything should be very crystal clear. The next step, which is number 4, is to set expectations and strategize the plan. Planning is critical, but dividing and conquering is equally important. There has to be crystal clarity. If the person is not doing that, ensure that the person does it. If you're pushing the person too hard, do not do it in front of the customer. Call the person and say, look, let me politely tell you what's happening. I think the team is not aware, or the team is not understanding you. We need to clarify this right away, or you're going to face problems. Okay, you will not be able to make it on time. You're going to get fines. Always remember, talk about the fine. Talk about the fine, but do not threaten. Do not threaten at all. Do not hit them like that. Hey, you did well. You did not do well, so I'm going to impose some fine. I'm telling you, that is the worst thing you can ever do. You're going to lose every respect. Remember, people's skill is very important. Step number 5 is to delegate based on experience. You know this. Be very careful and be the advisor here. Manage the execution process, which is step number 6. Very critical, guys. Ensure the quality is up to par. Do not take big responsibilities. Ensure that the person does it equally. Without a written handoff, which is point number 7, the game is not won. As simple as that. Fines. I think you should talk about $50 per hour because it's a waste in the system, but negotiate it down to $25. But fines need to be paid. Why? You need to put pressure on people. This is the real world. So long story short, guys, ensure that people apply their experience and do it well. This is very impactful. So keep running this cycle. Remember, talk about risk mitigation. Talk about how agile his experience will be. Always talk about good stuff about him, about what he gains. Many people might suddenly realize that they are trying to help us. Do not take sympathy. You should say that, look, I get it. You're thinking you are helping us. The way we would like to look at it is that we are all in this together. You need us, we need you. But I think the proof of the pudding is that we need the business so that you get the experience and we make the money as well. So be very careful about how you position this. Tact is very critical. Okay guys, best of luck.